Welcome back to Renegade GCM. Today we have a deck tech video with OP09 Nico Robin. She is a purple yellow leader with 5,000 power and 4 life. She also has the Straw Hat Crew tag archetype. She has the ability of Banish. When a character deals damage, the target card is trashed without activating its trigger. And when attacking, you may trash one card with a trigger from your hand to add up to one Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as rested. She is a ramp deck essentially. Downside to her is you have to trash a card with trigger from your hand to get her ability to work. Upside is she has banish, that if she connects to your opponent, they lose the card. It goes right to the trash. They don't get it in their hand, so they won't gain the counter power from it. They won't gain any trigger effects that happen. So up first, we're running 4 copies of the 7 drop 7,000 power Sanji from OP09 with a 1K counter. He has on play, you may return one or more of your Dawn cards from play to your Dawn deck. This character gains Rush for the turn, then rest up to one of your opponent's 6 cost or lower characters. Card's really good for that 7 drop turn. It's kind of like getting towards the end of the mid game, right before you start dropping your big bodies. It just applies a little additional pressure for you onto your opponent. Uh, 7 drop 7K bodies, good enough. So if you're going against Blackbeard and you can't use the on play, it's just a 7K. No reason not to play it. 1K counter at its worst. Up next, we're running 2 copies of the 9 drop 10,000 power Monkey D. Luffy from OP09. The secret rare there, it does not have any counter, and it has on play. You may return one or more Dawn cards from play to your Dawn deck to draw one card. Then this character gains Rush for the turn. So this card is one of the things you're ramping towards. Just being able to drop the 10K with Rush is insane. It doesn't have any counter, so you can find it in your hand as a brick, but we have ways to help out with that. He doesn't have trigger, so you won't be able to trash him with Nico Robin, but we do have other things that we can get rid of this card out of hand if need be. So up next, we're going to be running 3 copies of Shirahoshi from EB01. It's a 2 drop 0 power character with 1,000 counter. It has blocker, and when this character is KO'd by your opponent's effects, place up to one card from the top of your deck onto your life. Key note here that it needs to be KO'd, not trashed. So it has to be by an effect. So if you use it as a blocker, you're not getting that life gain. And anything that trashes it won't give you that either. So no trigger. I know this deck wants a lot of triggers, but this one doesn't have it. But it's just a cheap blocker that if they are trying to KO stuff, this would be a nice way to just regain a life. So here, no stranger to yellow decks. 4 copies of Capone Beiji from OP04. It's a 2K counter, 3 drop, 3,000 power. It's a 2K counter, that's all we use it for. But it does have a really nice trigger where up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack during this turn. This is a great card to have in your life, especially towards the bottom of your life. Won a lot of games with this just triggering off of life, so not really much more to say about this card. It's pretty mainstream. It's just a really good 2K counter for any yellow deck. So here's another one of our top end. We have Yamato. 4 copies of Yamato 9 drop 9,000 power from OP04. Does not have a trigger, nor does it have any counter. But on play, you get to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost that is equal to or less than the total life of you and your opponent. Then, if you have one or less life, you can add one life from the top of your deck to your life area. So, really good. I mean, Nico Robin can get aggressive pretty early. So, by the time Yamato comes out, she might just be a 9 drop 9,000 power body for you. Or you might be just taking out like a 2 drop blocker or a 1 drop searcher, which is still fine. It does what it does. Good card, pretty staple, pretty mainstream yellow card for the most part. Up next, we're running 4 copies of Kikanojo from OP06. 4 drop, 6,000 power, no counter. On KO, if your opponent's life is 3 or less, place the top card of your deck on top of your life. Like I said, another mainstream yellow card. It's been pretty much in a lot of yellow decks since it came out. It does have trigger, and if your opponent's life is at 3 or less, play this card. Really good card. Either way, if it's in life, it's great, getting it for free. If it's in your hand, just deploy it. it's going to be worth just wasting the 4 Dawn to get it out, especially if you're going to try to go aggressive. Just keep swinging it, let them answer it, and potentially gain yourself a life. Up next, we have from OP07, we have 4 copies of Frankie, the 4-drop 5,000 power 2K counter. He does have trigger. Draw 1 card. Then, if you have 1 or less life, play this card. Pretty good card. Like I said, it's just a 4/5, so it is a body that can swing without any investment for the most part, depending on your opponent. The trigger is really good off of life. It's a 2K counter at worst. Don't be afraid to deploy this guy just to get that extra body going. I mean, he's there. He's got 5,000 power. And our last ramp card that we're ramping into for this deck is our 10 drop 10,000 power ace from OP07, where on play you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. Then, if you have 2 life cards or less, this character gains rush for the turn. So when you play him, you're going to gain the life regardless if he gains rush or not. So you just, when he comes in, you gain the life, then check, do I have 2 less life? If I do, he gets to swing in. If not, he's just there for the next turn. No counter, no trigger, but he's what we're ramping towards. He's just another big body to apply pressure and close games. Up next, we have 3 copies of the Nami from OP08. 5-drop 5,000 power 1K counter. On play, you may trash 1 card with a trigger from your hand to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Then, if you have 3 or less cards in your hand in it, draw 1 card. So with our leader making us trash cards to gain Dawn, that second part might be relevant for you to get an extra card. But it has a trigger where you just activate this card's on play effect. So really good. It can get rid of cards that you need to without having to waste swings. Just a good card in general. This is an interesting one for the deck. It's pretty like kind of like, hey, if you're playing Nico Robin, you're playing Nico Olivia. 1 drop, 0 power, 2K counter. It is from OP09. We are running 4 copies. On play, give up to 1 of your leader, Nico Robin, power plus 3,000 for the turn. So on your first swing of the game, you can literally play her, make Robin an 8K without any initial like Dawn investment into Robin, and just kind of forcing your opponent like, hey, you want to lose that life, or do you want to give me a couple counters? And it has trigger, which is good too. If your leader is Nico Robin, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. So we have a lot of bricks in the deck, so being able to filter is very important to getting the pieces we need when we need them to execute our game plan. So overall, really good card. OP09. If you're playing Nico Robin, you should be playing this card as a 4 of. Like I said, at minimum, it's a 2K. Best case scenario, giving Nico Robin 3,000 power boost for the turn. Another card that's like an automatic 4 in the Nico Robin list, or it's coming pretty popular into a lot of yellow lists, and I see why. In OP09, we have the 6-drop 6,000 power 1K counter Nico Robin character. Has on play if your opponent has 3 or more life, trash up to one of the top cards of your opponent's life. So you're trashing it, which is great. So they're not getting any trigger effect off of that. It's straight trash to the ground, like just right to the trash bin. And it has trigger. This one doesn't really come up too relevant. Play up to 1 cost 3 or less yellow character from your hand. It can. There is targets for this trigger. But I found myself in the gameplays that I just kept it in hand and then just deployed it the next turn. It's a 6-drop 6K body at minimum. If even if you can't, even if you get your opponent below 3 life before you get to play this, like you're doing good. So there's no reason not to play it out. Up next, we have the 3 copies of Jogger Sol. Is that Jaguar? D Sol from OP09. We know who this guy is. He's the Marine that saved Robin when she was a kid. Spoiler alert. 3-drop 5,000 power with blocker. Has the trigger. If your leader is Nico Robin, play this card. So if you're playing Nico Robin, they've kind of given you the core, like, hey, your leader's Nico Robin, play this card should be in the deck. And it's a 3/5 body, like it's a blocker, but it can go sideways just as well as the other. All right, so we're running 3 copies of them. He doesn't have any counter, so keep that in mind. So get him on the field. Up next, we have 4 copies of You're the One Who Should Disappear from OP06. Pretty another another pretty common staple card for yellow. The zero drop event with counter, you may trash one card from your hand. Your leader or up to one of your characters gets 3,000 power for this battle. It is a counter, but it does have trigger. That was like the worst part about this card is like you if you didn't get it to trigger off of life, like in your last life, it was kind of like well, kind of felt a little robbed. But Nico Robin gives this little extra value where you can just trash it when you're swinging with Nico Robin if it's in your hand and you don't need the extra counter. But the trigger is if you have zero life cards, put the top card of your deck onto your life pile, then trash one card from your hand. So, pretty common yellow card. We're pretty much all familiar with what this card does. It's the zero drop counter event for yellow. And the last card we're running in the deck is just three copies of Darashi from OP09. So, a three drop event with trigger, draw a card. The main effect is look at the top five cards of your deck, reveal up to two cards with the triggers other than Darashi, and add them to your hand. Then return the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. This card is amazing for yellow because yellow is all about those triggers. So being able to pay three to get two cards, like it's potentially two K counters, like you get a Frankie and a Beiji, and it doesn't care that this isn't Big Mom or this isn't Straw Hat or it doesn't care. It just if it's got a trigger, boom, 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 like a lot of our cards do. This is gonna grab them for you. So I will tell you, she's a little bit of a learning curve. She has a hard time into a lot of the meta right now. I do have some gameplay videos that I'll be putting out soon of her. She's pretty aggressive, I'll tell you that, but she's more of a glass cannon, similar to like what Bello Betty does. Like it's a high rolly deck, so if Nico Robin gets the pieces and does what it needs to do, it's pretty good. But if you get, there's a lot that needs to work for this to go off consistently. But she's a fun deck, something you could take to your locals for sure. You may, depending on your, how much time you want to invest in her, you might be able to get a little bit higher play level with her. But other than that, guys, I hope you guys enjoy the deck tech. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We have one more One Piece content coming soon. We are trying to grow the channel. We're trying to get to 500 subs. We are currently at 16, so any support there greatly appreciated. Make sure you guys stay tuned. We'll be putting up the deck tech video and the gameplays here shortly. So enjoy.